It's a beautiful sunny day at Simpsons Mall Energy Centre. I'm sorry that you can't be with us this morning. So what we thought we would do, Stuart and I, was we'd do a little road trip, the day in the life of AMP's biomass fuel. And really, we're on a mission today to try and demonstrate to you that the fuel that we use is super sustainable, super local. And what we're really trying to do is reframe biomass as a brilliant store of energy for when it's not windy.
The purpose today is to trace our fuel, understand where it's coming from, and understand what makes it so good and so sustainable.
Yeah. Well, we got a busy day. It's about 8:30 in the morning, and I think we're on the road till about 6 this evening. So we've got a lot to get at. Off we go.
Yeah, let's do it.
Our first stop is to A.W. Jenkinson's depot. Jenkinsons are our fuel supply partner for the project and the biggest supplier of forestry products in the UK. The depot is dedicated to Simpsons, and here we're met by Carl, who runs it. It is 25 miles from Berwick and is where our fuel is blended and screened and then put on trucks and delivered to Simpsons. Here, sawmill offcuts and roundwood, which is not suitable for sawmills because it's not thick enough or straight enough, is chipped to make a clean, whitish chip. This is the premium chip we typically use in our smaller commercial boilers, but it's too expensive for our industrial biomass units. Instead, the chip we use in our industrial boilers is darker because it's a blend made of urban residues, forest residues, or the brash that would otherwise be left to rot on the forest floor, and sawmill residues. We're going to explain what these are, but before we do that, here's Carl's view on the benefits of our blend.
This idea that we're using this much more grade of fuel than just the roundwoods, what benefit do you think that's bringing to the sort of general forestry operation?
There's no waste involved in harvesting all the tree. You know, you've got your roundwood, which has got various outputs, and then you've got your brash and your forest residue, you know, that's also being used back into it.
Our second stop is to a sawmill owned by A&J Scott, where we are met by Brian, who has worked on site for the last 30 years. The demand for timber products made in sawmills, your 4x2s, cladding, fencing, sleepers you buy in B&Q and Wickes, means we need forests to be planted and harvested sustainably. Crucially, the economics of the entire supply chain depend upon recovering and using as much of the tree as possible. This requires two things: straight trees to make straight products, and markets for the wood that can't be used. Logs are graded before they enter the process. Rejected logs are chipped. Logs that enter the process are then scanned, and a computer optimizes how much timber can be extracted from the log. Typically, this is only 50 to 55%. Here's Brian explaining what he's looking for in a good log and why sawmills need multiple markets to make the numbers stack. What gets you excited about a saw log?
You want a nice straight log.
Yeah.
You don't want a massive butt on it.
You don't want the butt, which is the bottom, but you want the section above that,
Yes.
which is nice and straight and wide.
We'll take the butt, of course we'll take the butt, as long as it's not too flared.
Yeah,
If it's flared just enough that we can cope with the butt reducer, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
We have got a second...
Sorry, did you say a butt reducer?
A butt reducer,
I've never heard that term before, but I like that.
That. You'll see what I mean when we get there.
Right. So it's all about wide and straight, basically.
So this stuff we're looking at behind and over here, are these good saw logs?
These will be what you would call a good saw log.
Yeah, okay.
Ungraded at this point, but yes, a good saw log.
How do you get a straight, regular section out of a round bit of wood, right? Presumably you've got to cut this way, and this way.
Yep, you can't afford to waste any of it. It's all got to be made into a product.
And that's the key thing, right? Because you're buying this entire log.
Yes.
And you want to maximize the value with as little waste.
Now, our production team run computer programs, which for a certain size, be it 3x3s, 4x4s, sleepers, anything in between, there's an optimum size of a log.
Yeah.
that they would use for that order.
So out of this, which bit is going for biomass? So in our biomass plant, Woody Fuels come and collect the wood and AWJ come and collect the wood. Which bit of this log is going to our biomass plant to make heat?
Literally your edges.
Your edges.
So it's just what's going to be chipped off the edge. Because
Okay.
this log is a good saw log. So the only thing that you're going to get is the very edges that will be chipped.
Yeah.
In an ideal world, the production team put specific logs to a specific order.
Right.
Because it's to minimise on the waste. And the amount you're paying for the logs now, it needs to be the squeak out the pig, let's say.
Yeah. Okay.
I like that. Squeak out the pig.
Yeah, it is. It's about getting
get the squeak out the
absolutely everything you possibly can.
Have you got any idea of the tons of logs coming in? What percentage of it ends up as either the chip or the sawdust?
Well, probably 50% ends up as a core product. 45%. So really, but that's between chip, sawdust, and waste.
55% is you can make into a timber product
Centre product,
that goes to being kit wicks,
and
say,
the rest
and the rest is co-product.
Yes, it is.
And that goes to biomass, chipboard manufacturer, MDF manufacturer. In order to run your sawmill, you've got to get rid of this stuff.
You've got to be able to get rid
So
of it.
it is a product, but it's less valuable than the other product.
Yes, but it
And to make
needs
the
to
other
go.
product, this has got to go.
If this doesn't go, we would be strangled in such
Yeah.
a short time.
Yeah.
We couldn't cope for one day without this going on a regular basis.
Yeah.
We would be absolutely strangled. We
Yeah.
wouldn't be cutting anything.
So our ability to take wood from you on a regular basis, co-product from you,
It allows us to produce for the wider public.
makes sense.
In awe of the inner workings of the sawmill and the economics of making straight wood, Stuart and I moved on to the recycling yard run by Durham County Council. Here, we met Robert, who was responsible for processing the hedge and tree cuttings from 65,000 homes, local parks, playgrounds, and road sidings, which all then makes its way to Simpsons. Unfortunately, we're visiting during the nesting bird season, so hedge cutting is on stop till August. Instead, the council is collecting garden waste and grass cuttings to make into compost, but the process is very much the same. Cue Robert to explain what happens.
Our
Biomass.
biomass comes, like I said, mainly October through to March. It's our parks and grounds department. We do all of the hand park and the footpaths and playing areas, verges, roundabouts, etc. Those teams do all the grass cutting in the summer.
Yeah.
In the winter, when we're out in bird nesting season, they go on to the cutback. That then comes into here. We shred it, process it, screen it, and then produce 2 grades of biomass.
Yeah, okay. And before this sort of facility existed, what would happen to that material?
Some of it would go to compost, but it doesn't particularly compost very well.
Yeah.
And then a lot of it we end up in landfill historically.
Okay. So by virtue of a facility like this, by virtue of the fact that you can now collect the material and there's an outlet, biomass plants being one, we're avoiding material being a landfill.
Certainly, yeah.
Our final destination was Brandon Hall Forest, owned by Robert, whose family have managed the land for generations. We met Robert and Ezra from Jenkinson's, who is managing the first thinning. Straight, healthy trees need light. Trees grow quicker in well-managed forests and take in more carbon dioxide. But this means forests need to be periodically thinned every 10 to 15 years. This is done by taking out lines of trees, which allows light in and forest to be accessed when the time comes to harvest the mature trees. These trees, too small for the sawmills, are chipped and shipped to Jenkinson's depot. Here's Robert and Ezra explaining how the thinning works.
Can you see now, guys,
Yeah.
what we're doing?
Yeah. And you can see how thin those trees are at the moment. So how old are those trees that we're looking at?
28.
Yeah.
They're not halfway through their growing cycle yet.
Yeah, the lad on the machine would self-select. But if you've got 3 trees and the one in the middle is significantly smaller, that would be classed as your first. Then you'd take that one, leave the other 2, and you do that for everything really.
Yeah.
And then your second thin would be, again, still have
Selective.
grown double the size,
Yeah.
but you're just constantly taking the smallest crop.
Yeah.
The second thinning, I can't quite get in my mind. So
Basically, everything's just bigger.
yeah,
So the ones that you want to leave behind to really grow, they need more space.
Yeah.
They just need more space. They need more light. They need more everything. So you're taking out the poorer ones that would be out.
could you
competing them.
access it in the same way? So would you
Yeah.
create a line?
Well, you
lines?
just follow the same lines.
You just follow.
So,
So
like,
this,
when
right.
you're doing this first operation, you're putting in the sort of the infrastructure into the
Got
wood
it.
in your first thing that you put in.
Yeah.
So now next time in 15 years, whenever 10, 15 years, you'll go down with a harvester and he will just follow these same lines.
Okay.
And he will go along and he will just pick out
Got it.
the ones that are the weaker looking trees.
Yeah.
And then even in another 15 years again, when they do a final thin or whatever you do it, they'll be doing exactly the same thing again. And it'll just be thinning it out until you've got a lot less trees, but they're to the right. So,
Yeah,
they're
got it.
mature trees.
The more markets, the better for everybody, right?
Yeah.
Is kind of the point we want to make, is that in order for woodland to pay for itself, in order for people to want to manage it sustainably, there have to be more markets. We're going to recover the brash from now on.
Yes.
We're going to burn it, but we're going to displace gas
Yeah.
Well, you get energy out of it.
and make whiskey as a result.
Eventually, forests mature and they need to be harvested to feed the sawmills with logs. Robert took us to an area which has just been felled.
This is a clear fell site. So when the forest has reached its natural life, you clear fell it, and obviously it's been thinned. It's been thinned twice before this stage. We've obviously seen the thinning operation, but this is what happens at the end. This historically was burnt on the
Well, it was
roadside,
either
or-
raked up and left in a pile in the wood somewhere,
Yeah.
or if they needed it gone, they would have probably burnt it just up on the site. It would have been wasted. It would have been wasted either way.
Yeah.
It would have been left on site to rot down.
And in doing so, releasing CO2.
Yeah, yeah.
So the anti-forestry lobby, let's say, who don't get it, are going to look at this and say, "It's you've cut down a forest, you've cut down trees. That's not good. What are you going to do about it? What's
Replant the next crop.
that's the answer."
I mean, at the end of the day, it's a commercial crop.
Yeah.
It's like a field of corn. That's what it is. It's been managed. Will have to be replanted at the end of the day. So it will never not be forest. It will always be replanted.
And you were saying earlier, there is a legal obligation on the land owner to replant. So this will be replanted, and then as it regrows, it will sequester carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. It will bulk up, and the process begins again with thinning 1, thinning 2, and then clear felled again. It's part of a long-term cycle. The question that our investors ask us is there enough fuel? Is there enough feedstock? And is there enough sustainable feedstock? How would you respond to that?
Yeah.
Yes. Simply put, yes.
Year on year, Jenkinson's has been doing more and more tons, quite substantially.
Yeah.
Just for brash and whole tree, I think we were about 280,000 tons last year. I think this year, just the previous financial year, and the one that's just come around now, we're about 320,000 tons.
Yeah. So that brash market is growing more and more and more.
Forestry has always existed on marginal land. I mean,
That's right.
yeah, I mean, you plant trees where you can't put cattle and you can't put crops. That's what it's always been. That's where forestry always tends to be. That's probably where it will always be.
Very good point. So we're using marginal land that doesn't really have an alternative use to suck carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, to go to sawmills, to make products that are long lasting. And then the co-product that comes out of that goes into power stations and chipboard manufacturers to displace fossil fuels and make energy.
I've had a really good day. Yeah, it's been great. That's good way to end it. We're on the hillside next to the forest that we just saw above Durham.
I'm more convinced ever. I'm more enthusiastic about biomass than I've ever been. And the idea that, just take brash, for example, the idea that we can now recover brash from the forest floor and use that in our power stations to displace gas. The idea that by doing that, there's more value for forestry products that can be used to lock up carbon for decades and longer. It's just a complete no-brainer to me.
Yeah. So what we're doing today is it's a lot better. It's a lot better use. And it's totally embedded in the rural economy and making the most out of the value of what you've got growing in your doorstep.
Yeah. And that connection today has come across really strongly, that connection to the rural economy, to farming, to agriculture. You know, it is one really important component. What a day.
What a great day. Great way to end the
We
week.
better get back home to families. It's been a day in the life of AMP's Biomass. A great one.